Hey guys, Damien here, and welcome to the littleBIGsynths YouTube channel. In this video, I will show you guys how to use the external audio input on the Roland SE-02. This tutorial is actually in response to a comment that I received on a previous video where I had the Volca Keys running through the SE-02's filter and delay. So we'll be using the Volca Keys for this demonstration, but you could pretty much use any audio source you'd like. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. To get started, we're going to take a 3.5mm audio cable and connect it from the audio output of the Korg Volca Keys into the audio input on the Roland SE-02. Then press the manual button in order to ensure that the sound is accurately represented by the knob positions. In the mixer section, go to turn down all three oscillators. This way we will only hear the external audio input when played. Over here in the envelope section, we're going to set the amp sustain level to maximum. Alright, so now at this point, if you try and play anything on the Volca Keys, you will hear absolutely nothing. So this is simply because the audio from the Volca Keys has to go through the SE-02's VCA first before it reaches the output. But the VCA won't allow any audio to pass through until it receives a control voltage, hence the name voltage controlled amplifier. A voltage controlled amplifier, or even sometimes referred to as a voltage controlled attenuator, lets you use a voltage to control the amount of another signal, the Volca Keys, that is allowed through to the output. The higher the control voltage, the more signal is passed. So the idea here is to open up the VCA using a CV, which will allow the external audio to be heard. Those CVs can be generated from a key press or even the sequencer. So in this first method, which I'll call the key press method, I'm going to hold down a key and you'll actually be able to hear the Volca Keys. So now all you need is a way to keep the key pressed down. You can do this with a weight or something to wedge between the keys. I like to take a guitar pick and wedge it between the keys just like this. Now with the key held down, we have both hands free to play the keyboard and adjust the settings on the SE-02. We can actually use the sustain knob as a level or volume for the external audio. And that's why earlier we set the sustain level to 10 in order to make sure that we're getting the maximum volume from the Volca Keys through the SE-02. Let's go ahead and sweep the filter a bit. Let's go ahead and put this in poly mode so we can play some chords. Now that we can utilize the filter, we can also use the LFO section. We'll take a triangle LFO to modulate the filter cutoff. We can even use the delay section. Alright, so now we're going to use the sequencer to keep the amp envelope open. And we're going to go ahead and call this one the sequencer method. So the first thing we want to do is flip the toggle switch over here from the patch position to the sequence position. Once you're in the sequencer position, go ahead and use the value encoder knob to find an empty sequence. And I'm just going to jump to 128 because I know that sequence is empty for sure. Now we're going to have to input some notes within the step sequencer. Those notes will trigger the amp envelope, which will open up the VCA in order for the external audio to pass through, just like the key press method. And instead of inputting notes for all 16 steps, we're going to make this a little easier by shortening the sequence length from 16 to just one step. To do this, press the Perform button, select button number 15, which is the last step button. Use the encoder knob again to select a value, and that value is going to be 1. Now to input the note, press the first step and it'll light up green. So if we press play, you're actually going to hear the Roland SE-02, and that is because this sequence number 128 defaults to patch number 1. So you just need to switch back over to the patch position, press the manual button again to clear out the patch, and revert back to our manual patch that we created earlier. Toggle back to the sequencer position. Now press play, and all you're going to hear now is a slight blip sound. And that blip sound that you're hearing is actually a gate signal from this step number 1 being fired off. So with our one-step sequence, all we have to do now is adjust the gate length or the gate duration of that individual step. To do this, select the gate button, press and hold the step that you want to adjust, and you're going to see a value here which is 50. So we want to change this to the maximum setting, which is 100. So now that that gate signal is set to the maximum duration, you shouldn't hear any more blip sounds. Alright, so an even easier way to do this is by using the glide feature. I went ahead and reset the gate duration back to 50. This way you can hear the blip sound. So now that we hear that blip sound again, to remove it, press the glide button and simply select the step that you want the glide to be applied to. And there you go, the glide removed that blip sound and created a smooth transition between steps. But in this case, there's only one step. So now we can play the Volca Keys and adjust all the settings on the SE-02. So one last thing I want to show you guys before we wrap up here, and that is how to take advantage of the syncable LFO and delay on the SE-02. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to use the Volca sample to play some drum beats so you can better hear how the LFO and delay sync to a tempo. Alright, so I'm sending a trigger signal from the Roland SE-02 to a Belkin Rockstar, which is splitting that trigger signal into two separate signals, one for the Volca Keys and one for the Volca sample. I went ahead and programmed a drum pattern and a little sequence on the Volca Keys. Alright guys, well I hope you all enjoyed this video and found it somewhat useful or informative. If you did, please be sure to leave some feedback and a like on this video. I really do appreciate it. And if you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the littleBIGsynths YouTube channel and stay tuned for more from littleBIGsynths. Thank you guys.